Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Phillies Talk podcast presented by Team Toyota. He's Jim Salisbury, and I'm Corey Seidman. And Monday was a big day in Clearwater. The Phillies unveiled Kyle Schwarber. He got his jersey, his number 12. He's there. He took some BP. Probably a pretty good scene down there today, huh, Jim?
Yeah, it was interesting. It's the guy they pursued as far back as the month of November before the lockout, and Schwarber admitted that. He said they were a priority team for him. And he was the Phillies' big offseason priority. Obviously, they added Nick Castellanos after that, but Schwarber was the guy they wanted to kind of knock down first, and I think they reassessed some things in refocusing some of their energies, in the last week or so on Castellanos. But Schwarber made a really nice showing. I thought, the expression "win the press conference," and that means nothing. It doesn't help you win any ball games, but he won the press conference, said all the right things. I've never met the guy, watched him play for a long time, and you hear what a down-to-earth, good dude he is. Mom's a nurse. I think his dad was a police officer, and real down-to-earth, comes from a big family, thanked his family. I mean, he signed a $79 million deal. It's a pretty big day in your life. So he thanked his family, his agents, the Phillies, thanked all the right people, came across as very appreciative, and, of course, mentioned his wife. And they had a little boy moments after he came to an agreement Wednesday with the Phillies. He was driving his wife to deliver their baby. So what a week. What a week for the guy. But, I liked what I heard about just, his will to win. He's been to the postseason 5 or 6 years. He wants to win again. He wants to win here. He doesn't care what role he's in. He likes playing the field, keeps you in the flow of the game. But if Joe needs him at DH, willing to do that. Says he loves hitting in Citizens Bank Park. And I think he's going to be a good fit. It was pretty clear from talking to people as they would chase him down. Obviously, they love the on-base percentage. They love the slugging that he brings to a lineup. So they love his offensive production, but they really do like his makeup, his competitiveness, his will to get dirty and will to win. And all that stuff that I think in some ways can complete a ball player, because we've all seen talented ball players with poor makeup and, something doesn't fit right and they never really maximize their potential. So he's got terrific makeup to go along with some thump in his bat. So it was it was good to get that over with. The press conference will be another one on Wednesday for Nick Castellanos. And a little something after the news conference today. John Middleton, a managing partner, was there. And, he fielded some questions from a few of the scribes about the luxury tax. I mean, big buzzword. They haven't gone over it before. They're over it now, about why was the time, about sort of the misconception that he was unwilling to go over it in the past. So talked about all that stuff. So, an interesting day down here in Clearwater, Corey.
Yeah, Jim has a good article up at NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com right now of Middleton kind of going through why now was the time. Jim, the luxury tax has been such a big topic in this city. I'm not sure if it's like this in all 30 Major League Baseball cities, but here it seems like it's all anybody talks about during the offseason. I think that there was a portion of Phillies fans that were surprised that they did go over. Although, we've been saying and maintaining and writing and saying on this podcast over the years, repeating that has been what Middleton's message has been when the Phillies are at the right point of their winning curve, when he feels like it's a difference-making move, they would go over the luxury tax. It was interesting that they did it now as opposed to in season. We've talked about how you want to leave flexibility to potentially go over in season, but Nick Castellanos is such a difference-making player. And as we discussed the other day, that first penalty, the Phillies would only be paying a $2 million penalty if they didn't spend another dollar. So it's not like we're talking about, a really harsh sanction by MLB for going over the luxury tax for the first time here.
No, the reason I think you want to make sure you're ready to win when you go over it is because you go over the second or third time, it compounds and you start losing things that really affect you on the field, like draft picks and whatnot. But yeah, he's always said for the right opportunity, and I've said this before, I think, and again, the key word is think. I don't know this for 100% sure. I haven't nailed it down, but my gut feel is that they may have gone over it last year or would have gone over it last year if they could have gotten Craig Kimbrell in a deal that made sense for them. But it didn't happen, obviously, but that was the vibe I was getting last year. For the right opportunity, they'd go over it. And they view this as the right opportunity. And Dave Dombrowski and his staff sized it up, presented it to Middleton as it being the right opportunity. Middleton talks about, he was on board with it like within a minute. And, Dave still went through with his presentation, and John was still on board with it. And, like you say, they only pay a $2 million tax, and the tax is not computed until the end of the season. So if things don't go their way, they can get under the tax. There are ways to get under the tax, shed payroll. Obviously, that is not what they want to do. They want to keep this unit together. They want to end a 10-year postseason drought. And Schwarber, Schwarber's got some experience in ending droughts, right? He was on that Cubs team that ended a 108-year World Series drought with their win in Chicago. So, that's where they're going. So, Middleton talked about that. He talked about a whole bunch of things, really. So
I'm curious what you make of the Dombrowski-Middleton partnership so far. Dombrowski's gotten quite a bit accomplished here. I mean, he's had the ownership's backing to make these signings, but he came in with a reputation, Dave Dombrowski did, as a guy who wants to win and is going to acquire veterans and is more so, leaning toward the veteran than the prospect. And it's kind of played out here so far. The Phillies have spent a lot of money. They've made some win-now trades. You think of the Spencer Howard for Kyle Gibson and Ian Kennedy trade last summer. What have you thought about Dave Dombrowski's first couple years here? They haven't won yet, obviously, which is the most important thing. But
right. And, he was inheriting a team. I thought he inched it forward last year, and I think he's more than inched it forward, at least on paper now. He's an aggressive guy. He's in his mid-60s. He was sort of retired. He at least wasn't a GM or a president anywhere. He was in Nashville on that group that was trying to bring baseball there. So he was sort of brought, I guess, I don't know what you want to call it. He was brought off the sidelines. At that age, and I'm sure he's got plenty of money. At that age, you're not coming here to do a teardown and a full rebuild. You're coming here for, one more kick at the can, one more chance to win. He's already won 2 World Series. You're not coming to oversee some pie in the sky project. You're coming here to get a team over the hump and to win. And so I expect him to be aggressive. He does have the MO of trading away prospects to get you there. But to date, really, he's traded Spencer Howard, who, it didn't look like he was going to pan out here. And I wish him well, and maybe it will in Texas, but who knows? So, they've protected their top guys in the minor league system, and they do have a few of them, Abel, Stott, Painter, Rojas, so Hoppy. They've protected those guys. They like those guys. They really don't want to move them. So they've gotten busy on some free agent market. One of their resources is money, and they've spent this winter, $203 million in the bullpen and on sluggers. And, we'll see if it gets them to the playoffs. A really tough division. The other 2 teams have spent 2 ahead of them, the Braves and the Mets. And the Marlins have some really good pitchers. But, Dombrowski thought it was the right opportunity to go over the tax, and Middleton, was on board. And it's reflective of the strides they believe they've made. They think they have a solid pitching staff. You have the MVP in right field, runner-up in the Cy Young in Zach Wheeler. And now you've really lengthened and strengthened your lineup. So, ask me again in 6 months what we think of the job Dombrowski has done. But I would say on March 21, as the calendar turns to spring, you have to be pretty pleased with the work he's done this offseason, from Corey Knebel to the 2 big sluggers. So I feel like things have moved forward on paper, but they have to prove it on the field.
Yeah, Bryce Harper is pretty enthusiastic about what the Phillies have done. He spoke earlier this week just about how excited he was and how he didn't know that the Castellanos part of this all was possible. He meets with Dombrowski and Middleton and talks to them about players that he likes. There's this perception that's been created that Harper kind of is a piece of the Phillies front office, the way that LeBron James is out in LA. What did Middleton say about that?
Well, it's funny if you think back to when they recruited Bryce Harper in before 2019, even in the fall, or I guess the winter of 2018, 2019. They went out and talked to him, and there was one of those meetings where Bryce essentially interviewed them, front office and John Middleton, and this is in the special we did signing Harper. John Middleton talks about his meetings with Bryce Harper, and Bryce Harper putting it right to him. I think the question was, if we're within striking distance, is your general manager going to have the guts to make a big trade or give up a prospect to get us over the hump? So he has that type of investment and interest and involvement with what's happening on the team he committed to for 13 years. He made it clear when he wasn't even a Philly, when he was a free agent, that he was going to ask these type of questions and have these type of interest in what the front office is doing. So I don't think any of that, or his interest level and his communication with the front office should come as a surprise. He's been doing it since before he was a Philly. What I do think is overblown is that he pushed this front office into making these moves. No, they were all in agreement that they needed to do things. They were all in agreement that they needed to go out and get somebody, and they ended up getting Schwarber. And what I think happened is Castellanos' market maybe didn't blow up the way Castellanos and Scott Boras thought it might have way back when. And they saw, a $20 million a year commitment as manageable. And, they stayed in it and kept tabs on where the market was going. And they decided that it was going to be in a place where they could afford to jump in and could jump in. So I look at it as there were shared interests between Bryce Harper and the front office. And I would even extend that to shared interest from Rhys Hoskins and JT Realmuto and Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola and Zach. Those guys want them to sign good players too. It's just that Harper, he's the guy, with the big price tag. He's the guy that's been one of the big focuses of baseball since he's been 16. He's got the kind of the cachet to put his name on things like that. And he has spoken to the front office going back to, like I said, the winter when he was being recruited about what are you going to do. So these things aren't surprises. But, in the end, and Middleton addressed that. He flat out said, and I asked him, did Bryce Harper push you into this? And he shook his head no several times. And he said he admires Bryce's enthusiasm and commitment to the franchise. And he said, I want to go the same place as Bryce wants to go. This is something that the front office wanted to do and the clubhouse is on board with. And he mentioned that his will to win is right there with Bryce Harper's. So I don't think it was I don't think Bryce had the deciding vote here. I really think that everybody was in the same everybody was thinking the same way, that they need to get good players here.
Jim, I want to go back to a comment you made just now talking about Castellanos, something that we discussed yesterday on the Phillies Talk Daily podcast, which is that perhaps his market didn't materialize the way that he expected.
I think that was a huge factor. I think that was a huge factor in the Phillies really jumping in, that it didn't mushroom to a point where it was out of control. It was going to, make sense. And part of the logic is we're only going to be pay a $2 million fine. Dombrowski goes to Middleton and said we're going to be $10 million over. That's a $2 million hit. This is something that makes a lot of sense for us. So I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah. So it's interesting that when you look at the entire free agent class this winter, it didn't turn out the way that many expected. You had all these huge names that you thought were going to get $250 million plus. The only guy who got a contract of $200 million or more was Corey Seager. It was 10 years, $325 million from the Rangers. I'm not saying that these other guys didn't get paid. Chris Bryant got $182 million. Max Scherzer and Carlos Correa got insane 3-year deals with extremely high annual average values. But it seems that that's the way the game is gearing toward, is the shorter term deal with the higher AAV for these top free agents. Like Trevor Story got 6 years, $140 million. He probably thought he'd be looking at way more than that. That was the same deal Javier Baez signed early in the offseason. Story probably thought he was going to make more than Javier Baez, has a stronger resume. I'm just interested by this kind of shift. teams out of the lockout didn't really overpay for these guys going into the season here.
I don't know if that's going to be a forever thing, or I don't know if that was a product of the game being shut down for 99 days, coming back, guys getting into camp, and here's what we got, take it or leave it, But I don't think it developed the way a lot of guys thought it would. I think, hats off to Corey Seidman for jumping early. What did he get?
$325 million over 10 years. So, I mean, that's a higher AAV than Bryce Harper, for example.
Yeah, and I think
significantly higher.
When the offseason started, you thought, Correa was going to get a $300 million deal. And I know that AAV, what is it, 35?
Yeah, 35.1.
That's nothing to sneeze at. That's incredible. And he's got an opt-out after year one, correct?
I think it's year one and year two.
Year one and year two. So he's essentially going to be a free agent again and go out and get his 10-year deal.
Right.
For $300 million. But I think it's very noteworthy that he didn't come out of this offseason with that $300 million deal that pretty much everybody thought he'd get, especially after guys like, we've seen a bunch of $300 million deals. Bryce Harper, Manny Machado,
Lindor,
and Seager. So, yeah, I do think the market didn't shape up like we thought. The numbers are still astronomical in a lot of ways, as you mentioned, on some of the shorter AAVs. But, when it all began, I thought Castellanos may have had a higher price tag. And that's why as a front office, you always need to be monitoring and checking in with the agent and checking, kind of keeping your name in there, keeping some interest, even if it's just being a interested bystander, because all of a sudden, it's not in your budget, and all of a sudden it comes down. Now it's in your budget. You can do something, and you end up with a guy. And I think some of that happened here. I really do, because I really think they would have been happy with their winter had they come away with a closer and a slugger. And they did. And maybe something didn't materialize in center field for them, and then they had extra money to think that a guy like Castellanos, if his number came down, that could be realistic. But that's why you always stay engaged with people, because you never know what opportunity is going to present itself. And good job by them. They really did a good job on this offense.
Well, yeah, I remember us having several conversations about this on the podcast over the last few months, that if they came out of the offseason with a Schwarber and a closer, would that have been enough? Would that have been enough improvement to put the Phillies in serious contention? I don't think so, honestly. The team had so many other weaknesses, but you add Nick Castellanos to this, and now they have as good a chance, really, as most teams in the National League. Curious to see, after it's all said and done, what their World Series odds are in comparison. I'm not saying that that's where they're going, but I'm just saying that other than the Dodgers, there aren't any clear-cut titans in the National League. So, Jim, Tuesday, interesting game, Phillies-Tigers. It's on NBC Sports Philadelphia Plus, the Phillies' second home spring training game. Bailey Falter is scheduled to start, and Bailey Falter is a guy who could end up playing a pretty important role early in the season, given the Phillies' uncertainty in the rotation with health.
I would say he probably will play an important role. Even if guys like Suarez and Wheeler are on the opening day roster, ready to go, take the ball sometime in that first week of the season, they might have shortened outings where you're going to piggyback someone to pick up multiple of innings behind them. And a guy like Falter can do that. He's a guy that might have been in the rotation last year if he didn't get ill with COVID or just go into COVID protocol and had to miss some time. So he's an interesting guy, big, tall lefty, and he could be very interesting here in a few weeks. Another guy is that Hans Kraus. He pitching against the Yankees today, not having a particularly good outing, but it's the first one in spring, so we'll see what happens there. But they're going to need pitching depth, and Bailey Falter, he can provide it on two ends, starting or bullpen. But I think the fact that they've built some depth in their bullpen allows them to look at him in the role he's always kind of been in the minor leagues, a starter.
All right, well, thank you very much to everybody for listening to this Phillies Talk Daily podcast. We'll be right back here with you tomorrow. Catch you then.